Builders, Mike Killen here from sellyourservice.co.uk, and today I want to do a really quick review of Gary Vaynerchuck's new book, Crushing It, How Great Entrepreneurs Can Become Influencers and How You Can Too. So, full disclaimer, I have never read Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuck, which I believe was published in 2009, and there's been a few editions since, and I absolutely used to fucking hate Gary Vaynerchuck. I used to find him brash and obnoxious and pompous. And the problem, and it's interesting because he addresses this in his book. In fact, also I listened to the audiobook. I haven't read the book version yet, but I'm planning on getting it, which is usually a habit that I have. If I really like a book, an audiobook, I'll go ahead and buy the paperback version. Or if I like a Kindle version of the book or an ebook, I'll go and buy the paperback version. So I used to hate Gary Vaynerchuck, because he would make all these proclamations and he would talk all about his business and whatever, or he would also talk about how he was right and stuff like this, and he swears a lot and stuff, and which maybe people thought that I would like. But I'd heard good things about this book, Crushing It, and to be honest, I'd watched more and more of his content on YouTube. I'm a huge fan of Casey Neistat, and Casey often refers to him. So I thought, okay, well, I'll give this a try, right? And wouldn't you know it, he's turned me around. And it's interesting because he even talks about that process in his book of turning people around who previously might hate you or previously might have a real problem with you. The reason I now like Gary Vaynerchuck is because he's been right a lot for almost 10 years. Okay, probably longer than that because I know his business has been going a long time. But the methods that he talks about with social marketing, influencer marketing, direct marketing, online marketing, paid advertising, funnel building, all of this stuff essentially comes together in this book, and it turns out he was right about a lot of it. So the book is quite short, only took about 8 hours for me to consume. Now I listen on double speed, which meant that I only had to listen to it for 4.5 hours or so. What I love about the book is that Gary not only takes real life practices on influencer marketing, so essentially how to grow yourself into a worldwide influencer with a large audience and a large following, how to monetize that. He also goes over the platforms to do it. The book is kind of split into two halves, I feel. First of all, it's actually, what does it require of you to be an influencer? What type of content do you need to produce? Who do you need to be? The types of values you need to have. One of the other reasons I think I used to hate him is because I think everything he was telling me was things like, you need to work harder, you need to work longer hours, you need to work smarter, you need to focus, you need to double down, you need to do the work yourself. There's no shortcuts, there's no cheating. And for a long time I felt that there were those options. I could cheat, I could work 4-hour days and this kind of stuff. And I think the reason I hated him is because I knew deep down that he was right. Also, perhaps there was an element of jealousy there, that I felt like I wanted to work these 15, 16-hour days. And I was always thinking of excuses as why I couldn't. I was like, oh, I've got family or I've got friends, I need to go do stuff. You have to have relaxation time, you have to go to the gym. What's interesting is Gary says, that's all true, absolutely, but you can either make the choice to sacrifice that stuff now and enjoy it more later, or you can double down on it now, and or you can do all that stuff you want now. It's just going to take you a lot longer to get there, to get to where you want to be, or you're never going to have to get there at all. So the first half kind of talks through these processes of what you need to commit to and what you need to do every single day, every single hour of every single day, and every single action you have to take has to be focused towards building yourself as this influencer, as this online marketer, as a place where people can go for trusted, authority-based, valuable content. Really interesting. Some of the techniques he talks about are actually not even just trying to help your audience, but trying to help your grandchildren. Like, if your grandkids look back in 20, 30, 40 years time and think, oh, I really want to know what my grandfather in my case, or my grandmother, how do they get there? How do they do this? How do they build a business? And you document that part of your life. You document the process of building out a business. And it's interjected with real people like Amy Schmittauer, John Lee Dumas. It's taken extracts from people who have read Crush It, his original book, how they've applied it to their business, the processes that they've applied, and how they themselves have built themselves out to be an influencer within a space. And it's fascinating. They all experience very similar qualities. They take a niche or a market or someone that they understand, and they double down on that process, and they double down on wanting to help that person. They make a lot of mistakes along the way. A lot of them have started in pretty regular jobs, and over time they've wanted to shift into becoming an influencer, and now they're in the place where brands are paying them, to talk about their business and talk about their brand. And that's kind of the first half. The second half of the book is essentially about how the various platforms that are available to you. Coco, hey, go and relax. There we go. The various platforms that are available to you as an entrepreneur. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, Musically, you know, and how there is an opportunity to do a land grab right now. He also talks about Amazon Alexa skills and like Alexa-based business and Alexa-based content, which was mind-blowing to me and is absolutely something that I'm literally going to be looking at later today. What I think was most interesting about the second half is how, first of all, Gary openly admits to making mistakes with like backing certain businesses and not going after others, and also the mistakes he made within his business, like trying to repurpose content too much, trying to just take his YouTube videos and turn that into a podcast as opposed to trying to create native podcast content. I think there's a blend between the two of taking content that you've perhaps produced on YouTube or your blog and then repurposing it in another way, as in to talk about it, not trying to cheap out the audience, I think is what essentially Gary's trying to get at. Overall, the book was a real eye-opener into the more almost philosophical aspects and the truth-based aspects of running a business and becoming an entrepreneur and becoming an influencer. It's not as simple as just even having 200,000 followers. You have to build yourself out to a process whereby you're providing so much value that people can't help but notice you and take notice of you and share you with your friend, share you with their network. It was very, very interesting how the concept of this like change, how it used to be print and weighted media is now social, how it's just because a lot of big businesses haven't jumped on it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist as a platform. Gary even makes the prediction that within 5-10 years, probably even now, we're finding that influencer-based marketers and influencers on YouTube and Instagram are probably going to start earning more money than people who we would deem regular celebrities, like movie stars and pop stars and, you know, dickhead reality TV stars and stuff. Overall, I think the book is outstanding, especially if you want to become an influencer within your space. If you think your space is incredibly crowded, the good news is it's not. There is still an enormous opportunity available to anyone who wants to carve themselves out in a very specific niche with a very specific problem on a very specific platform and then begin to capitalize out and start using these other platforms. It was interesting how he said, look, back in 2004, 2008, it was all about blogging, and there were these huge blog stars, people driving tons of content, driving tons of traffic to a blog, and they said, oh no, fuck the new media, you know, sorry, fuck old media, like TV and radio is dead. And interestingly, he said those people then didn't transition into this third wave of media. They didn't transition into YouTube or Musically or Snapchat or Instagram stories. It's not necessarily a case of people who just go, oh, you know, it's a bit wishy-washy, isn't it? It's not. If you continually create useful, relevant content, I've been saying this for years, I think it's a massive misunderstanding for businesses to think they can continue to operate in the same way unless they want to create an authority expert or an influencer in their business to go out to their customers. If they're not willing to do that, if they're not willing to have, and we used to have spokespersons, that's what a CEO is really, they used to have spokespersons. But if those businesses aren't willing to go out and have an influencer and have an expert within a space, then they're going to be done for. There's no need for me to follow faceless telco corporation. You know, I used to work for a company called KCOM, and you know, their big thing is they haven't got anyone who you can follow. They're a FTSE listed company. It's the second oldest telco company in the United Kingdom, potentially even the world, and they've got absolutely no one who you want to follow. Everyone has a go at them because of their business structure or whatever it is. You know, there's a few weird things to do with like how they run their business, but there's no one willing to step up and become an influencer because they think, oh, it's not really the way we do things. Tough fucking shit. It's not the way that you do things, but it is the way the world does things. Things like YouTube and Facebook video are already overtaking the amount of hours of content that people watch rather than regular TV. So they still do these stupid shit like sponsoring Hull football stadium, which is just a ludicrous amount of money for an area that actually they have a monopoly on. I would focus on creating useful content and having an influencer within their space who could you know, push out their content. But that's just me. You know, what the fuck do I know? So anyway, Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuck, I highly recommend checking out. I got it on Audible. I've got like their credit system, so it only cost me 1 credit. I would highly recommend checking it out, particularly if getting into the influencer space or even just promoting yourself as an entrepreneur. And if you even think, look, I provide funnels and I provide a service business, I'm still not entirely sure on my niche, go ahead and listen to it anyway, because I think it will help you understand what we mean by niche marketing. A niche is not this magic thing that suddenly appears out of nowhere. It's something that you carve out and create for yourself. And if you create better content consistently over time, it's a game of patience. If you stay in the race longer than anyone else, you win. That's it. And you can begin to transition into other areas as well and begin to see results very quickly, as opposed to just building stuff for your customers. Anyway, guys, I'm Mike from sellyourservice.co.uk. Thank you very much for checking out my review on Gary Vaynerchuck's book, Crushing It, and I'm probably going to go check out Crush It now and reread that. So yeah, thanks very much. I'll see you on the next video. Keep building those funnels.